Welcome. This is Beyond the Here Now. I'm your host, Antonia Lau, and this is the show that will take you a moment to wrap your heads around new thought, new thinking, new ideology than you've been taught to believe about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. Today's topic, we're going to talk about your loved ones and the afterlife. And I'll start or preface the show by saying my partner passed away January 1st, 22 this year. Now, that was interesting how it happened. As a professional psychic, this is an interesting way. Yes, we do get information for ourselves. The other way is a myth. We all have lessons, experiences for our greater soul growth, which is all that we take out of here. That's it, soul growth. And this is one of the experiences of life that we take. Now, the interesting thing is, 3 years ago, his friends reminded me that we're from England as well. One was, and one was my dear friend, that I had told him, and I had mentioned to him 3 years ago, psychically, that I had picked up that he would be passing in 3 years. That was told because if the information is given to me, it's not for me in my own living room, it's for the person. So he could be aware to put his life on the track that he felt was best for him. So it's my duty to share that information in the highest ways possible. But this is your partner, so it's not always so easy. And so he said, what a heart. I said, well, I didn't want to go into that, but that was it. But the friend had suggested I go ahead and take an insurance policy out. And she said, you're very psychic. You might want to do that. And I felt a horrible feeling that was too mercenary. The information is not for me to gain from. It's for greater soul awareness for the person it was intended. And then 6 months before his passing, on his birthday in last May 2021, I did a solar return for him, which is interesting because it's very accurate. I found that many years ago, this particular resource was so accurate that I would give a psychic reading for someone on their birthday and give this as a little gift on the side and read from their astrology. And it would say exactly what I just said in the psychic reading. I thought, why am I wasting my energy? But the point of saying that is this time for him and his location for his birthday, it said this year, if you do not release the need for domination and control, you will find yourself with an unexpected death before your next birthday. In all, some 30 years of using this particular resource, over 45 years of doing readings, I found this pretty strong because this is my partner. I had to tell the client I could do it easily, but my partner. And so I did it easily at first. And then, of course, I had to read the parts so he would understand with integrity how it was coming. And again, to address the free will choice that was allowed to him in that process. But I want the audience to know, because we have a lot of friends or loved ones that are passing at this time. I personally have over 22 since last September that have passed. And people may be finding in varying degrees and numbers as we move forward that estimate in their lives. However, from my metaphysical spiritual training and as a teacher doing this for over 45 years again, remember, I'm a hard and fast skeptic. So on my show, I'm not going to espouse a theory or a belief, or we don't have time for that. We really don't. So what ends up happening is I'm going to share things that are confirmed, and I won't say anything on the air or on a radio or TV show or with a guest or client or conference that hasn't been confirmed for about 5 years by the divine universe beating me over the head before I would really believe it. I've studied. I used to read a book a week. Now it's 5 at a time, and always guided material from the inception of my life being a psychic for many, many years now, from my childhood. And so ultimately people have to understand. So what I did was to allow him to let him know. And yes, it was quick. His eyes were open, mouth open. He was relaxed. I just found his remote. He was a happy camper, watching Koi, his favorite thing, on the YouTube, and all that good stuff. But at least he was aware. He had a dream that night in full detail. He remembered. He'd never remembered any of his dreams. He said it was the happiest dream of his life. He was all relaxed and posed me up, laid out. And so I had just spoken to him just a few, maybe 45 minutes before, 45 minutes to an hour. Came back and he was already gone that rapidly, that quickly. But I want people to stop the fear. Edgar Cayce, the 20th century's most documented psychic, states that there is no death. There is birth into the physical and birth into the spiritual. You see, we have one soul that lives forever. And we get in these cute bodies, nationalities, religions, back and forth, gender, each one. So we can get that greater soul growth, which is the true reason we are here, incarnated in Earth School 101. And I understand it can be a tough school, but we promised, we asked permission to come. We were granted that permission, and each person has their greater soul growth and a purpose or mission that they promise to give the world to leave it better than when they came, and also to clean up their things and the personality traits for their highest benefit. So it's interesting, time is only relevant on the earth. What was amazing to me was to find in advanced or spiritual astrology that each person chooses the doorway in, the date, time, location of birth, as well as the doorway out. It's all a choice prior to their incarnation or their time of being born on earth. So it's an amazing process, it's very accurate. And some leave sooner, some leave later, based on that, because there's a window of opportunity for them that they've planned in their birth chart or their birth data. In Casey's case, he was doing so many readings at the time of the war. He died January 3rd, 1945. And what ended up happening was he felt sad because people and their sons and daughters were in the army and services around the world. And so he would pull and do 11 to 20 a day. And he was told if he did that, because it takes our life force as a psychic, that he would lessen his life over time on earth. And he would die at a certain time. If he only did 2 a day, it would be extended. I think it was 3 or 4 years after. And that was his choice. Well, he couldn't do it. His little heart wanted to make sure that those people were comforted and still continued 11 to 20 a day. And by the way, that word reading, I want to share with the audience where it came from. You see, it came from Edgar Cayce, who was a Christian mystic. He was read the Bible every day for every year of his life, starting at, I think it was the age of 7 or 9. And what ended up happening was he was given this greater gift, but remember, was already earned on a soul level prior to this incarnation. And so what literally happened was when he did 20 years of medical readings, they were very accurate. And all of a sudden someone asked, well, why do I have this health issue? He said, oh, because your life and so and so. And that was the first time the life readings came. And what had happened was he explained that all of a sudden they showed him a huge, vast library, the little old man holding him a book about that particular person that he was talking to, or that client at the time. And they had him read the information about that person in that past life where he stumbled into this particular illness he was still working with in this lifetime. And that was where the word reading was coined from. Also, I want to change or help to people to understand the word channel. The sources that came through, the archangels and such that came through him, stated that he was a channel for the information that they were giving him for the benefit of those others. It doesn't mean like we have channel 7, channel 9, channel 5, all those channel 4, that sort of thing. It wasn't a channeling. He didn't channel. He could hear and see and was shown, and he would read for the greater benefit of that particular person. So people have to understand. Plus, Casey was the first one that started the word holistic. He believed illness always goes back to 100%, or can, if we change our alignment in our mental and then our physical and our spiritual thinking. And there's a joke I like to say. God says, when people are out of mental alignment, what should I do to get them to understand I need to fix this? Oh, I know. I'll put it in their body. Maybe they'll pay attention. And why I'm saying all this is because, remember, there's a plan. My partner passed just this past January. But there's important reasons under that. More than that, just what I was picking up psychically. Just a few months before, someone that had trained with me with a special method of healing that I do, that heals organic things or serious things from the body about 1,000% more effective than Reiki, okay? But what happened was she had taken a course too, and we went to lunch with she and her husband, and she's from England as well. And so what they did was they had fish and chips, and she looked up and she said, you know, you have this little thing over your left forehead, like dimpled or grayish, blackish thing over your left forehead, eyebrow, and over to the left side of the head. You might want to take a look at that. And she kept eating. I didn't say anything, but I looked at him. And then 3 days later, I'll recount again, 3 weeks later, I was walking into the Walmart with him. I was ahead. He had to park after me. And what ended up happening basically was he came in and I was looking ahead, and then I turned around to see him walk through the turnstile. And I saw a neon green oval over his left forehead, over to the left side of his head. Bright neon green, about an inch oval around. And I looked, he said, what are you staring at? I said, I tell you when you get to the car. We got to the car afterwards, and I said, you go now and get a brain scan with your doctor he'd had for over 30 years. He did, because she had seen it 3 days before, and I'm seeing it in neon color. And so it's extremely important that he did. And the doctor found a bony growth in his front temporal lobe that had been there for quite some while. It was a genetic predisposition, I find out later, called frontotemporal dementia. Okay, so all that ensued, and I now understood at that point some of the symptoms after he passed. But the passing, this is important for people to understand in Western world, and I wish they would teach this. It's so important to teach. You see, in India, when a loved one or friend or relative passes, they get the body on the bonfire, great. Then they have a party for 3 days with great food, dancing and singing, happy for that person because they just graduated Earth School 101. Like I said, it could be a tough school. In India, when you're born, they mourn for 3 days. Oh my God, you're back. Oh no, I hope you get it right. But here in Western world, we're not taught that. And this is important. When our loved ones pass, they just graduated. Don't we celebrate when somebody graduates from university or from college or their 16th birthday to the next part of their life? Don't we celebrate? That's where the word celebration of life came from. So we're not taught in Western world, but when we mourn, when we grieve, I don't care what these scientists state or say, it causes our loved one on the other side in that transitional period, and actually longer than that if we keep grieving for 20 years, severe pain. Severe pain. So you should be happy. They got to graduate. You're still stuck down in the dust. So they got the better deal. Remember, it's pre-planned. This is not your life. This is your Earth School 101 experience. You go home to the astral plane where we really live with that soul growth you've attained on this planet. So it's a process that we're not taught, unfortunately. And so there's a process when some loved one passes, and this is my partner. Obviously, it should deeply affect me, and it does. Not only a partner for 10 years, but in past life, it is confirmed a partner for many, many, many lifetimes. So I have to understand this is not a small thing. So I knew exactly from my training what to do for many, many years, my research and studies. On the first, actually, he was passing on the first, right? So for 5 months after the passage, on the anniversary of the date the person has passed, you should take a votive or a white votive candle in a pie tin or a mason jar and put it outside your house, not in, outside your house. And what ends up happening is say a prayer to your guide, guardian angel, or to theirs for helping them to listen to their guide, guardian angel to follow the loving white light. For a person that's not spiritually aware, it takes them approximately 2 years to realize they've even passed on. For a person that's spiritually aware, which I had shared with him this knowledge so he could grow and learn, what ends up happening is I found that it's after 5 months that they're able to come back, visit, talk if they choose. If they choose. They always visit on the left side. Literally, and guide, guardian angel is quite different. Highly evolved soul that doesn't have to incarnate on the planet again. They always are on your right side, and you would have chosen them prior to your birth. You can visit after you passed on. But the trick is to get the onus, the pain out of what we think really happens. So that's a transition that every soul, you can look on their astrology chart and see in advanced astrology, but we're not allowed to tell them because some people try to cheat it out. There's something we're to learn from the very last straw of breath. That's extremely important. So it's important for us to be happy, celebrate their life. Every soul deserves to be celebrated. No one on the planet is perfect, I can guarantee it. But it's important that they took the challenge, the time to incarnate and give their highest and best in the way they could while they were here. So when some loved one and friend of yours, please be happy for them. They just graduated. And continue to pray for them. As Casey says, they need that prayer and forgiveness through the bardo, it's called, or the borderland, because it can be kind of tricky. A lot of people forget. I've had clients in my life that have dealt with suicides in their life. But anytime anybody dies or passes on, there's a way to handle it. We need to move all their belongings, their favorite chair, move their items, get rid of or donate their clothing, so they don't get confused as they're transitioning through that light toward the other side. So it's extremely important. The easier we can make it for them with our understanding, love and prayer, it makes their transition that much more easily attainable for them. So today I'm happy to have an honor to have my guest, Karen Frances McCarthy. How are you, Karen? Thank you for being with us today. And so, thank you.
Hi, Antonia. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
We had a little problem with a little glitch we just noticed without us being able to be on one screen or the other, but thank you for bearing with us. And so, Karen, please tell the audience your position and a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I am a working medium now. I'm a professional medium now. I've had extensive training. I've done a lot of training at the Arthur Findlay College in England, and I hold 3 awards from the Spiritualist National Union. But I'm also a best-selling author, and I'm also a PhD candidate, and I'm working on doing a lot of research around the cultural influences on contemporary ghost literature and these stories that we tell and that are perpetuated about the ghost. And I have this little kitten here who's going to join us as well. And so I was a journalist. I was a political journalist. I'm from Ireland, but I was here in the States covering US politics, and also was in Iraq back in 2006-07 with embedded journalist there. So that was a very, very different world to the world I'm in now. So I teach mediumship. I've had, like I said, I was very much a skeptic while I was in Iraq. I can assure you I was very much a skeptic. I did, as a child, have a lot of mediumistic experiences, sort of seeing spirits at the end of the bed when I woke up. Just that awareness. But, into your teens, you become more interested in other stuff, and, it kind of falls away. And I think it's probably just as well. And so it didn't really, there was always something, but as a skeptic, I never paid attention. There was always some sort of level of perception other people didn't have that I never really paid attention to, because I just wasn't interested in it. But then my fiance died very suddenly when I was down in Virginia, actually at an army base. I was doing some research for my first book, which was part of the cultural outreach for the Northern Ireland peace process. And I was down there doing some research and doing some work on that book when I got the call to say he had suddenly died back here in New York. And I stayed in this, I didn't know what to, just the shock, didn't know. I ended up staying where I was in Virginia and continued to do whatever I could. But all this sort of strange and odd things that had happened as a child started happening again relentlessly. And I was very, very, very confused. Initially I thought, oh God, I've gone out of my mind with grief. But there was just something odd. And strangely enough, the way these things are, one thing leads to another, and you meet one helpful person. And the first helpful person, strangely enough, was the local Catholic priest.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Very excellent. And he was immensely helpful, quoted St. Dominic, basically, to paraphrase, don't mourn my loss, I can be more help to you after I am gone than I could be while I was here. When his followers there were confused. The cat wants a little hug. And so it kind of set me on a path, and I ended up at the Edgar Cayce Centre because I was so close to the Edgar Cayce Centre as well, and that was an incredible experience at the time. So one thing sort of led to another person, to another experience, and finally I came to realize that he was trying to communicate with me. And I find it sort of blew open then that ability I'd had as a child. And all of a sudden now, complete strangers belonging to somebody I was sitting with in a park. Well, they were a stranger. I would be sitting with a friend in a park, say, for example, and somebody would pop in. And this sort of started happening. And people, particularly at the Edgar Cayce Centre, were like, you really should do something with this, and just because the power of it was phenomenal.
Exactly.
So I ended up writing a book, which thankfully now is an Amazon international bestseller, called Till Death Don't Us Part.
Excellent.
A true story of awakening to love after life. It took me quite a long time to get around to it. But
can you tell us the title again? So it's
Till Death Don't Us Part, a true story of awakening to love after life. So that was published by White Crow Books in the UK in 2020. Came out in the middle of COVID, which was an experience. But it was beautiful to write it, because as a writer, I actually wrote it sort of as a literary endeavor. So it was quite, I'm a huge proponent that I do believe the language of the spirit is poetry. And so it really gave me an opportunity not to write as a journalist, but actually to write in a very kind of creative, fluid way. So I really enjoyed the process. And then it's actually proved to be very popular. And so I've had, lots and lots of people, hundreds of people have been in touch to say how much it helped them and whatnot. So it's very gratifying to be able to ultimately put that story together, So I did, like yourself, I can't just sort of decide to hang out a shingle. Like, I really need to know everything. So, I had, coming from where I had been, it was really important to me, not just to do mediumship, but to understand mediumship, I went to the Spiritualist College in England then, to understand the nature of consciousness. So, of course, I go off down first, consciousness theory, quantum mechanics, these sort of things. It's like, how is there any conceivable framework for how any of this could be true? Not that quantum or consciousness answers these questions, but at least it raises questions, So, I've done a lot of that. And, like I said, I've done a lot of study. I still write on spirituality issues for magazines and news sometimes, but now I work doing private sessions for people, as you know, and I do a lot of teaching because I really want to be able to use the education I've had to be able to create these well-rounded mediums, not just people who can grab a load of evidence and details, but people who are within themselves balanced and grounded and healed enough that it's safe to put them in front of very fragile people. So I do that. And so that's really now, and aside from doing this PhD I'm doing now in my second year, that's really where, like you say, your life can take these very sudden, massive turns. And it was a very hard turn for me to make. I mean, it's very difficult to go from being an atheist and a skeptic and war correspondent to suddenly sort of, figures appearing at the end of the bed and things turning on and the bed shaking and, and like people's dead aunties sort of sitting beside you on the bench. Not, I mean, metaphorically, but you can, you can see them. It was just such a massive turn. But every day I was still trying to write my first book, but every day was something new. So it was really a very extraordinary journey in discovery. I'm an absolute proponent of, I will only speak from my own experience as my own experience, and my perception of my experience is also my perception of my experience. And I think we'd all be better off, everybody's an authority on everything, as you know, these days. I think we'd all be better off if we were just to own the fact that it's an opinion and it's a perception of an experience, because ultimately, what's an objective reality? There isn't one, right? So I do try to just sort of come from that place of, this is what I've understood on my journey. I'm not trying to write a Bible of the afterlife, because that's going to be very thought responsive, very perspective.
What's interesting about the show is I try to make sure that they're going, that's why I won't espouse a theory or a belief or an opinion. But remember me, I like them to hit me in the head many times about 5 years before I'll believe anything. So I love the heavy skepticism on this. I want to let the audience know, even in my own work, even though I was getting information about my partner, and I did that votive candle every month for 5 months after his birthday, after the birth, look at that, birthday into the spiritual, and the birthday into his passing, okay? And I actually, after that period of time, I actually then contacted you to see if you could confirm what I was picking up, which is excellent. I just wanted the confirmation. And we had only this short time, Karen, and it was through the Edgar Cayce New York. They did a psychic fair online. So I think it was scheduled a couple of weeks before, and I had chosen you by being guided through the other choices. And it was excellent at that time. It was very short. You said, normally I have an hour, but I got to get in here. There's a lot of people here, but we got to get this done. And of course, I thought it was interesting when my mom popped out first. She would, but that was intense. And that was excellent. But I, of course, wanted to know about my partner, but it was okay that she could. And my grandmother handing back because she knew the time was short. That was excellent. People don't realize that when we pass on, we normally go back to the age of 35 to 40 to look or the appearance we had at that age, which is kind of nice. So it's excellent. But you picked up my partner as well. And he was reticent to come around. He said, I don't think you trust me. You were picking it up. And you said, they just talk to me. Come on, just say yes or no, which is great in that short amount of time. And you came up with something I needed to hear, conscience. And that was excellent. All I want to know, all my prayers and forgiveness, that he had gained the ability for consciousness to have a conscience about his choice and action. And you didn't even know it was a genetic predisposition from his father. He didn't even tell his family that he had this issue. Not friends, not family, no one. My partner was too afraid to say it. And they didn't understand the father had severe short-term memory loss and other behaviors that are part of that frontotemporal dementia issue. His father had served in World War II as a young soldier and liberated Belsen, one of the concentration camps. So you understand they had a deep reserve of thought and about life, but my partner never entered a church in his life, never knew about God, and not until he met me had he been psychic. But the eerie thing is talking about these beautiful consciousness sciences. It was just a couple of years ago, I like to research deep and continue to go through the layers. I have all the degrees and all this stuff. You never stop. You continue to be studied, to study. And I happen to be studying his marriage sector in his astrology for advanced astrology. And it said his first wife would be under his intellectual level and under his status level. And it was a good thing because he was promising to show her she could have a better quality of life. And she happened to be the barmaid at the disco in Manchester that he went to every night. He was a phenomenal businessman. He had a couple of businesses. They did quite well, came over to Canada, and he was fantastic as a businessman, did extremely successful, then lost everything. But what happens is the success was there, but they'd had the 5,000 square foot bespoke home, the whole shot. So he did his job. And then it said the second wife would be psychic. I screamed, Karen. I couldn't believe it. I thought, how in the world could it know that this, because he had never any aspiration towards spirituality or anything else than that nature. And only a spiritual person with all the tenets of my background will be able to understand what the condition he might be going through and be able to handle it in a way, in an unconditional love manner, and still stay strong and stoic through all this for a partner that had had many lives before confirmed. And so I thought that was interesting. And it also mentioned, it said to use your anger constructively in this lifetime. Please, investigate martial arts. Well, beside his business, he taught as a karate sensei in England for 30 years to over 1,600 kids for free because he had businesses. He felt that in England, they feel that children, they don't matter. So they weren't given. He was a great father figure, and they remained friends and respected him into their middle ages. And he died at 67 with my partner, which is very short, but he exercised every day. So that wasn't the real issue. It was this particular issue with that genetic predisposition. But my point on that is you had a short time, 10 minutes. Tons of people were wanting to say hello. I know many, so the whole point was they can't all do it. And so it was excellent that you were able to pinpoint in that short amount of time and gave me that opportunity to receive that confirmation. And the words you told me was, he said, the first words was that he was sorry and that he felt guilty. And most of all, he was ashamed, but he was still working on it. And he knew he had a lot of work to do, and that he watched his father. True. He didn't know the genetic predisposition, and that he had the condition, and that's where he picked it up from. And it was all correct. And he knew that I had forgiven him, and that helped him go through the borderland, and to where he is. And he knew it was. And so that was excellent. But you said he was looking a little bit ashamed, head down. And you asked, is he quiet? And I, oh, not him. Big guy, but not fat, but giant, 6'5". So the point was you picked it dead on in a short amount of time. And so that's important for people going through these changes that aren't aware. As I mentioned, we have one soul that lives forever. We just go birth into the physical, birth into the spiritual. We have to understand it's not the end of life. We all go home. We all go home. And usually the way we plan on a soul level is planned prior to. So it's kind of an interesting, beautiful depth that people should be taught, I believe. And so the knowledge you share, Karen, in your book, in your work, in your studies, in your theses, please, the world needs to see it so all of us can grow in that conscious awareness. Knowledge is to be shared, which is why I do my work and continue the deep, rich study. Now, all the accolades and degrees and all that stuff, that's nice, I have them. But that's not enough. I want the knowledge continuing so we can continue to share that knowledge out to the world. And that's the most important factor. So in your work, have you found you're changing from the atheistic life into the shadow, the Iraq, Hakkasid intensity of Iran, all those areas of wartime and war torn, all those energies precipitated you to go back to your original gift. which is excellent. So have you found anything that you've gained or gleaned from that personally, from doing this service for others?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the one quality I think is most important when we're working as a medium is got to be humility, you know, and it's like making, which is why, you know, I started teaching. I do mediumship the way I do, and I teach it the way I teach. I mean, first of all, I had 20 years of Zen practice, so I've been practicing Zen, so I kind of come from a different sort of place than most people. And I did attend a spiritualist college because the Arthur Findlay College is really the gold standard of mediumship training. But I think what's really important is humility. I find when I'm trying to work with people, I really absolutely don't work psychically. And you and I have talked about this before, where a psychic, now all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. And it's a very important distinction. And some psychics are phenomenal psychics, and some mediums are great mediums and terrible psychics. But, you know, so, but the thing is that the faculties that are used for mediumship are the same psychic faculties. So you have to have them to be a medium. But just because you have them doesn't mean you are a medium. And it's something I always feel, I get very nervous for people who don't understand the difference, because quite a lot of psychics don't understand the difference. You know what I mean? And so I fortunately had very, very, very good training to really recognize the subtle energies in the difference. So, you know, as I said, a psychic can pick up from the aura of the living person in front of them. On Zoom, doesn't matter where you are. A whole bunch of facts and details and memories from the person without ever being connected to them.
Correct.
Ever. And I've actually experienced that myself. While I've had somebody tell me loads of information about my mother, and I'm sitting there, and it was all factually right, but there was no sense of her presence. But I'm sitting there at my mother going, are you talking to her? No. You know,
exactly.
And you have to be really, really careful of this. So I'm always like, make sure you go to somebody who's properly trained. People think, oh, just because somebody was born with this great gift, and you know,
not good enough.
All mediums were born with this ability.
That's correct.
So, you know, I mean, everybody to some degree was born with this ability. I always say that. You know, it's like music. It's like I would be lucky to make my way through chopsticks, but somebody else can play a concerto, and so. We're all on the, so to me, everybody has the ability to at least make a single contact, but that's very different from being able to do that repeatedly on demand with complete strangers for complete strangers. So it's like the gray area between the chopsticks and the concerto. There's all of that. But I find that what is very important is that that people go to psychics if they need, so I will do a soul reading, which is a very deep sort of guidance for the spirit incarnate in this lifetime. I don't do psychic readings, but and I do mediumship. Now, if you need psychic guidance, go to a psychic. If you need to communicate with your dear old dad or mother or somebody, go to a medium. But you know, you're better off doing that. So the thing is that you want to make sure that the person is connected to your loved one and not just reading facts from your aura. And there is a subtle difference there. There's definitely a subtle difference in the energy, and there's more of a presence. You can feel more of a presence when it's mediumistic. And it also is not just going to be a list of facts. It's going to have more of a flow to it. But it's easy to confuse them, even for the psychic, even for the medium. It takes quite a lot of training, which I fortunately had to be able to tell that difference. And it's important because your mother's opinion, your partner's opinion is going to have considerably more weight for you than a psychic telling you something. So it's okay if the psychic tells you something, as long as the psychic says, oh, this is coming from me, not from your partner, your mother.
So I want the audience to know that just like there are different doctors with different treatment modalities, that's how we are in this work of the esoteric world. And I was going to say, basically, I remember back in the early 70s, a client of mine for my psychic readings had referred me to a neighbor. And that's how I work, by referral only, and thousands of clients by this point. But the point was, he came in the door and all of a sudden, my heart was killing me. And I thought, oh my God, I was meeting a man, he's an older gentleman, he came in, see, I could hardly talk. I was almost, oh my God, this guy's going to have to call 911. And I could barely make it to the seat. He had sat down and I said, heart, heart attack. And the pain was intense. And he said, my wife just had a massive heart attack 3 weeks ago. Well, I didn't know as I opened the door that her soul, shocked because she'd never had a heart issue before, had jumped right in, which is not allowed, because I opened the door without my protection. That was way back long ago. I'd learned since you make sure you have that divine protection. And I recognized after a bit, oh my goodness, to always do that. He was so happy and relieved about what came through for his reading and the wife and all that. But I usually see the loved one on that left side, and that's nice that they go last for me. I actually, because I asked the divine for proof, this is somebody's life, I need proof. I ask and hear and see the person's guide / guardian angel. At first that used to freak me out. I thought, oh my God, but realized through the years, I just pay good, humble, rapt attention. Not my opinion, I don't edit. They know the person better than I, and they know what that person needs to hear. Number one, they never have to incarnate again. It's not, I've never seen wings. I see this beautiful undulating auric energetic field, which someone I learned in the 5th century picked up, said, how can I paint that? I'll draw wings. So what it ended up happening was we've been confused about that all this time. But that soul is a highly incarnated individual that never has to incarnate on the planet again. And in their last life on earth, they excel. And instead of going on to other consciousness journeys, Jesus, Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, Moses are still going forward, they stop and put themselves in divine service for the 7.9 billion people here that need it. So we don't need to compete, but I want people to be guided by their heart and soul to someone that is real, not a baby psychic or baby medium, but someone that they're guided to that has this professionalism. I teach that same thing, especially how people use things, because I found that it wasn't used. We don't know everything. We're continuing to learn and to grow. And that knowledge is to continue to be offered out to the benefit of the whole of humankind, not just for us. So I love what you were saying about your teaching, the proper skill sets. It's interesting. So at the end of a reading, if the loved one appears, I will only after I listen and hear the guide, what they have for the person, I confirm it. I'm psychic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, all the clairs, clairgnostic, all those since early childhood. I just use tarot, astrology, numerology, palmistry, graphology. I know all those sciences very well, but and I try to disprove them all and work the opposite way. But I use them as a third point of reference only to confirm what I'm seeing and picking up. So they literally put me in the person's body. I'll feel it as they would and all that good stuff. But the point is, I don't want people to labor into not knowing what is happening to that loved one, to be amiss in what that world is like at that time of such great change in their life to a loved one. So I want them to have the opportunity for you, Karen, your books, your materials, your theses, all this, what I do as well, if they choose, if they resonate, that's how they get to us. Mm-hmm. And on that note, if I could already, I would like to offer you as a gift for coming on today, a mini reading on the air. My reading is 1 hour long at least. I go for broke. I actually do hear and see them. I really, like I said, I trust him, and I have never seen anything like them. I love them, but they love us more than anybody ever will, because they truly know what love is. Mm-hmm. And God in the universe doesn't judge, only stupid humans. So ultimately, I do love their discourse, but I have a duty in divine service during that period of time. So there's a lot of protection that goes on between all that I use. And the third modality to confirm is with the tarot and all the rest, as I mentioned. But I actually see and hear them. So ultimately, if you could do me a favor and just phrase a mini reading, one specific question, not a general. General is 1 hour.
Oh my goodness.
They'll tell you the answer and all about how it affects your life. I want the people to know the difference between a storefront gypsy and a true professional psychic. I've done over 50,000 readings, as I mentioned, in my career, and it's effective. I stopped counting in 2003, but it's important that they get the information they need at that time, and they have free will to apply it or not.
Oh my goodness, I haven't got a question at all prepared for you.
Okay, not to worry, but what I want to do, something may come up as you go through. But ultimately, with that, so they can see the difference. It could be about someone else, it could be about your cat, your ability, your theses, your book. My clients tend to be, it's interesting, from PhDs, double PhDs to, like I said, celebrities and all that. I treat everybody the same because I have a few minutes just to get to the soul and reading, and that's work. But in that arc, they have free will to apply it. And what I like is when they do, I feel sorry for the ones that don't. I detach after the reading, but I'll get letters from 17 years ago. I looked you up. I should have listened to you. Everything you said happened. Well, I'm so sorry. You had your free will choice, which you and I respect. I also like the beautiful conscience you express to someone that's lost a loved one that's coming. It has to be handled gingerly. Even when I told my partner, gingerly, gently, because this is something about the end of this existence. You can't just say, well, you can't do that. And so it has to be coming with some sort of reverence for their souls too.
Absolutely.
Anything about the books, the conferences?
No, I mean, I suppose if there's something you really feel that would be helpful for me to know at this juncture.
That would be my general. So let's do a mini question. That would be my general reading. I just go for broke. But here, and I lose track of time during the reading, so that's why I wanted to do just a short little answer. Okay. Time is only relevant. So you're doing your thesis, or absolutely the sales of the book, or if something you're planning on doing later on.
I'm looking to create the architecture for an entirely new way of teaching mediumship. So maybe we could look at that.
Let's ask, what do you want to know? That's still not specific. Do you want to know if it's going to be successful in the next 3 to 6 months, 3 weeks, 2 years?
Oh, well, I won't be launching until next year. So
okay. Between now and the next year, will you develop that framework of architecture for that?
Yeah.
The way that it'll meet with success. Isn't that what you really want to know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so that it'll be effective, basically. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. But you're not going to ask me. We're human, therefore flawed. 2% of the brain that we use thinking we know everything. What we want to do is ask, and I'm going to ask you non-verbally to address it in your own way with love and respect to God and the divine universe, not me or you, your guide, guardian angel. As I shuffle for a third point of reference, you want to know the architecture that you're working on for that teaching modality. Will it be as effective as you'd like? And feel how happy it would be if that happened. If you want, you're welcome to close your eyes. But think about the end result, not what you are in it, and what you like to see as the framework, and how it reaches others so they can utilize. They're going to need these principles. Please concentrate and say stop shuffling whenever your heart says.
Okay, and stop shuffling.
And it bothers me so much because people even don't do the tarot as it should have been. It's open, this deck in particular, to open to the God's eye or pineal gland. Each card can be 25,000 different meanings. On top of that, there's an archangel that speaks behind each card, plus the guide, guardian angel. I have to deal with listening and to them first. So there's always a lot going on for me at the time. But I just like at least those 3 points of confirmation. On the pathway ahead, the answer is yes. There's going to be, oh my God. They said an outstanding student. One of them is great. She could have Libra strong in her birth chart, sun, moon, and rising. She looks like she started or is in her teens. That's interesting because a lot of souls coming are bringing this strong ability at this time for these changes. But it does show me here on the pathway ahead, it shows me it could be after some sort of family gathering or anniversary party that you attend, that this goes off into a real big growth period. It shows me you probably have water sign in your birth chart, sun, moon, rising in Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, very strong. And it shows you determined to get this information out. But it is high archangels that are guiding you. Real synchronistic events and things will be happening, literally caring to pull you that direction. Synchronicities, of course, are not coincidences. The divine universe, I call it like dropping a breadcrumb trail, this doorway, that door, to meet particular people that you need in this focus. And it does show God and the divine universe's influence. And by the way, when I say God, it has nothing to do with man's 35,000 religions that man invented. That's the problem. God did not. It's our own personal connection to the divine. But it does show me here that influence here, God's influence is showing me you've got some sort of studies you want to awaken people to find a way that their pineal gland is activated. So they're accessing true depth of material as you've seen yourself being able to do so. So they don't make the spoil of it. I hate when I see a storefront gypsy, what they do, you curse, it's that and the other. Oh, it drives me nuts. But it's important that they get true information that's life altering for their soul growth. And that's the key people forget. That's all we take. It does show me the answer not only is yes, they said within a year. The month of September is very strong where you really put down roots and put that framework together, and then you make changes. I see that all the way through January this coming year, 2023, and then onward. It looks like May and June, looks like you're trying to push it out, okay? But I love this one female, and there's another gentleman at the end. It also shows me, watch how you guard this particular teaching. It shows me, I don't want somebody to take advantage of you and say it's their system or call it their system when it's actually Frances McCarthy's system. It's extremely important. So try to find some way to safeguard that, because it looks like it's shifted and altered, and I don't care for the diminished view. I like your quality of doing it. Everything we should do, whether it's mediumship, psychic ability with mediumship, all we need to do is to do our highest and best. Stop competing with everybody else. best yourself, I always say each day. Use the tenets that we promise in the highest way. Keep the studies going. It's essential. But here it is. I love the heavy duty guides coming around. It shows me you'll be aware of that influence. It reminds me of Arthur Ford telling Ruth Montgomery, the Washington Post journalist who didn't believe in any of this, that he would come to her after he passed. And she said, "Ah, yeah, sure." And then one morning she got this call to wake up, and she wake up, we've got people here. And he had other guides with her. We got a lot to do for these people. Get up. And she was writing in scrawl first. He said she couldn't read it to transpose it. And so sure enough, after it was over, she was able to get to the the typewriter, and she gave us copious amounts of material in the books that changed her life and the lives of many others. It reminds me just of that quality. And so what you're doing is sharing and teaching the safe way. The same thing I do with all the modalities I teach as a metaphysical spiritual teacher, tarot and psychic ability, and all of this in the highest standard, not the least. It's the highest way. From Atlantis, the first 25,000 years of Atlantis was brilliantly, highly developed spiritually, as well as Lemuria that predated that. And all of a sudden, we took a downturn in our purpose in life, and we're picking that back up to where it should be. Casey says we failed 3 times to spiritualize the planet. He saw ahead. This time we do it. So with your work, my work, and many others out there, we need 7.9 billion people that need to be reached and inspired. May you be your highest and best. But how can they find out about your work and your classes later on, or to get in touch with you for their readings as well?
Yeah, I mean, everything, if you want to go to anyone wants to go to my website, KarenFrancesMcCarthy.com. That's Frances with an E. And, there's also all my sort of social links are there if you want to follow social pages. But also, we've just introduced a new community area. So you can sign up at the moment and get a free community account. And that gives you access to recorded meditations, workshop recordings, content updates all the time. You can send me questions. I'm starting to do little YouTube videos to answer. I keep getting the same questions. I thought I'll start answering them on YouTube and posting them for the community. You get absent healing. There's loads of lectures and talks and resources there they can go to and get those there. And then all the classes are listed there, all the classes coming up for the rest of this year in psychic development, in mediumship, and in soul writing, because I do soul writing as well as a writer. I love it. And some of those they're all the ones in the States are online. I am doing some because I work with the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre in England as well, so in Scotland, and so I've got some there too. But if you wanted to make a private appointment, there's an online booking system there. It's very simple and straightforward. And you can do mediumship sessions, soul reading, healing mediumship. There's also, I've got private mentoring, because sometimes people just have a bunch of questions and they just want to be able to have a focused conversation. So we've made those mentorship sessions available as well for people. But pretty much you can if you just go to KarenFrancesMcCarthy.com, everything else can kind of leads off of that. So please do head along there.
It's nice to see the work being continued and expanded. As I say, we can't all reach everyone. If people would like to reach me for my work, they can go to AntoniaLau.org, AntoniaLau.org. You can see information about myself and my work. If you'd like to contact me at info@AntoniaLau.org for a session, my classes, my work, my radio shows, things like that. And I use radio as a method to teach, one of the methods to teach, because it tends to reach people in, how can I say, especially now since everybody's been home for quite a while. But I've been doing it for many years this way, and conferences, courses, classes around the world. So we need the work. We need to inspire our brothers and sisters around the world. I love your background, though. I love from the atheistic stance all the way through the battlefield to, how can I say it, the afterlife field. So I want people to understand the reason why I asked for you to come on was because, I don't know if I mentioned on the show, but there was a gentleman that had a couple that had a wedding 8 months ago, and every one of, actually 33 members of the bridal party, or actually 30 of the wedding party, not the bridal party, 33 and 8 months later have passed on. And so this is important. If I've just lost 22 that I know of, and there's different age ranges from 37 on to mostly in their mid 50s or 60s or so, but it's important that we understand how to help them transition. It's not all about us. and the selfishness. We got this beautiful opportunity to be with our loved ones or friends. We need to help them as they go through that transitional period, which is can be tough and can be confusing for them. We need to have this altered way of looking that they can still communicate. I always say, doorway in, doorway out. There's just on the other side. You just can't see the other side of that door. So it's important that they refresh their thinking, their perspectives in the highest way. Be happy for that departed loved one. They got that lucky. Remember, they're still stuck here with us.
And I would like to just mention also, if anybody's interested in the actual whole story, that on my website there are links. You can get my book Till Death Don't Just Part really at any major booksellers. On my website there's a page, links to Amazon and whatever, Goodreads, it's a very besides just sort of being a literary endeavor, it's a very easy read because it's written as a literary endeavor, not just sort of me talking at you, but it's very easy and colorful to follow along. I'm a big proponent in always write poetry, even in prose. But so that's there. But there's also a lot of sort of just general information in it as well, because anything I was learning as I was going on that journey is mentioned in the book. So there's probably a bunch of jumping off points in that as well. If people want to get recommendations for further reading, or organizations or what, following along my journey, there's plenty of places to leap off as well.
And let's tell them the title of the book again, please, one more time.
It's called Till Death Don't Us Part. And it's
your website.
True story of awakening to love afterlife. And my website is KarenFrancesMcCarthy.com. That's Frances with an E.
Any parting thoughts you'd want the audience to know with the amount of exceptional passing in this time frame and forward that you'd like them to be aware of?
Well, I would just, I'd really, what I would love to do is really, if there was anything I could do in this life, would be to jettison superstition and to really develop a much more 21st century contemporary understanding of what the psychologists and the scientists have begun to start to recognize as consciousness theory and perception, the nature of reality. Because I'm doing a PhD, I come across these medieval concepts that you can see are just dressed up and dragged into the 21st century. And people keep passing these notions along, like people being lost and earthbound spirits and this and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, if anybody was actually really to look back at the origins of these, you would see that they just originated by somebody's opinion 500 years ago. And they're not actually true. And so I would love to challenge that, because I see, and there is actually a chapter in my book where I'm just inundated with all of these superstitions and false beliefs and beliefs that people have taken to be truths. Just because you believe something doesn't make it true, right? And so there is a chapter on that. And I really included it because so much harm is done to the bereaved with these beliefs. So I do address that in the book as well. And if there was anything I could do, it would be to start getting rid of. You want to hear the questions people come to me with. I'm like, oh my God, like, how is that still existing in the 21st century? So they can be very harmful. And so I would love to dispense with these. So I wrote that book really very poetically, but also from the skeptical journalist's eye. So it took me as I said, a very long, takes a whole third of the book just for me to come to terms with the fact that what's happening. It was not an easy thing, but I always say, people say, people receive these signs like a feather or a robin. And a friend of mine said, you're not receiving little signs, you're receiving burning bushes, and it was because it was going to take that for me to really sort of understand what was happening. So, I would say, challenge anything that's presented to you. There is no such thing as an objective reality. There's no such thing as an objective truth. We even know that time and space is not objective. And so all of these things that we think are evident are not.
Correct.
So please just, I would, just challenge everything. It should make sense. There is love, there is connection. Everything else is fear and ignorance, and really there never, ever, ever is going to be harm done to you from the spirit world, by the spirit world, or anything like that. And if anybody's telling you that, don't listen to them.
Correct.
Challenge what you're being told,
That's I love that. Plus, I love what Casey stated. What I liked about his work, out of the myriad of people, everybody from literally Helena Blavatsky all the way before that, after that, all that I had studied, the rich studies forever and continue. But his work pulled away all those extrapolations and gave you the proof. So it was a shock when he even learned about reincarnation during his readings. He said, oh my God, how am I going to teach this at Sunday school next Sunday? So those kind of myths and misconceptions are wound up, but that's why I liked his work. It was so very precise without his interpretation. It was actual data. And I think the confusion, as you mentioned, Karen, is that people think we're this body. We're not. We're in a soul that has chosen to inhabit this body. Even everything, how you look, how you are, is earned by soul growth. I've seen, oh, that's so funny. I'll meet somebody and perhaps they're Jewish and they have an issue with the Palestinians, but I'll see a litany of all that they were and once was a Palestinian. And vice versa. I'm thinking, why are you upset with one another? I see this is what you were in the past. In other words, they have lessons to learn about that. But we've been everything, as I mentioned, but we are souls in this body called Earth School 101. Casey confirms that we go through all these sojourns in these 8-dimensional qualities throughout our world. And so it's extremely important to understand we're not just this earth, we're not just this body, and we are this soul, like I said, one soul that lives forever. And I love that people are learning as they become more aware that the purpose is not our stuff, not our titles, not our certificates or our status, our homes or our toys, our bank accounts, none of that. They're going to ask after we get, so what did you do for soul growth? And they're great, cute new movies that are out there. Bruce Joe Rubin has a slew of them that he tried to project what was happening, but he's a very deeply spiritual guy. He holds meditations from New York all the way to California on spirituality to keep everybody growing that way, and gave us the movie Ghost to show, we could show a little bit of the afterlife and then what dreams may come. Oh, there's several movies. One I like the most is with, what was his, there's a few, but I have a list on my website about them, but they show people what kind of really happens afterwards. And it was done by a comedian, Albert Brooks, and it is amazing with Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks. It's literally almost.
Oh, it's about the couple and they have to get married or something, isn't it?
Is a little different if I could get the name, but there's so much coming through. But what happens is he gets angry and he dies really rapidly and quickly in Beverly Hills. And he goes through the afterlife with Rip Torn as his mentor, and they have different brains. And Meryl Streep has done this heroic life, and his sucked. And so you get to see what actually happens, and it's called "Defending Your Life." Is the title of the movie. Excellent piece because it kind of actually shows what really happens in that transitional period, and so people can understand we don't live here. This is just school. It feels like 90 years, but it's about how can I say it like that? Einstein's theory of relativity. Time is only relevant on the earth. We always go home where we really live. And so I want to wish you, thank you for being with us. And please tell us one more time the title of your book again.
So the title of my book, here it is Till Death Don't Us Part, a true story of awakening to love after life. And White Crow Books put it out in the UK there in 2020. So Till Death Don't Us Part. People always think till death do us part. No, the whole point is till death don't us part. So that's the title of the book.
Perfect. And for all, you can get those at Amazon and every bookstore around the world. So please allow yourself this time to grow. And thank you very much for being with us today. And I want to wish the audience all the best. Thank you so much.